"You look stunning in that dress," he said, and the alien nurse nearly fainted. Best HFY story. The medical station drifted at the edge of known space, a vast ring of metal and light where hundreds of species came for healing. It was quiet in the way only hospitals could be quiet, full of soft sounds, low voices, and machines that breathe for the injured. For most of the galaxy, this place was neutral ground. Wars stopped at its doors. Old enemies lay in beds only meters apart. Rules were strict, traditions older than many stars. Humans were still new here. They had joined the wider galaxy only a few cycles ago, and many species were still unsure what to think of them. Humans were physically unremarkable compared to some races and technologically average by galactic standards. What made others uneasy was not their strength or weapons, but their behavior. Humans spoke freely. They showed emotion openly. They smiled at strangers. To many species, this was unsettling. Neera of the Selathi adjusted her uniform as she walked through Ward 7. Her species was tall and slender, with pale blue skin and eyes like polished glass. Selathi culture valued restraint above all else. Emotions were private, carefully controlled. Words carried weight, and careless speech could shame an entire bloodline. Neera was a senior nurse, trained for decades. She moved with calm precision, checking patient readouts and directing junior staff with quiet gestures. Her uniform was formal today, woven with silver thread that marked her role and rank. It was not decoration. It was identity. She paused near one of the recovery beds, reviewing data on a wounded trader from a reptilian species. His vitals were stable. She allowed herself a brief moment of relief before moving on. At the far end of the ward stood a human. Daniel Hayes leaned against the wall near the security checkpoint, arms folded, posture relaxed. He wore the standard dark uniform of the human diplomatic guard, though he had removed his helmet. His hair was short, his face tired but alert. He had been stationed here for 3 months, assigned to protect human diplomats and assist station security during emergencies. Daniel watched the ward quietly. He had learned early that staring made some species uncomfortable, so he focused on the general space instead of individuals. Still, he noticed things. He noticed how efficiently the Selathi nurse moved, how the silver threads of her uniform caught the light, how different this place felt compared to any human hospital he had known. Neera noticed him too. She had seen humans before, of course. They were impossible to ignore. Their body language was expressive, their faces too readable. She found it distracting, even improper. Still, this human had been respectful. He kept his distance and followed station protocol without complaint. For that, she silently approved. Their paths crossed when a medical cart malfunctioned near the central aisle. One of the junior aides struggled with the controls, growing flustered as warning lights blinked. Daniel stepped forward without thinking. "Need a hand?" he asked. The aide froze, unsure if she was allowed to accept help from security. Neera approached, assessing the situation. The cart was harmless, just stuck in a safety loop. "It is acceptable," Neera said calmly, giving permission. Daniel knelt beside the cart, carefully following the aide's instructions. He fixed the issue quickly, then stood and stepped back. "All good," he said with a small smile. The aide thanked him and hurried away. Neera inclined her head slightly in acknowledgement, the Selathi gesture for professional respect. Daniel hesitated, then spoke again, his voice gentle. "By the way, your uniform is impressive." Neera paused. She turned slowly to face him, her mind struggling to process the words. The translator implant rendered them clearly with full cultural context. Impressive, directed at her appearance, spoken publicly, her breath caught. Daniel, unaware of the impact, continued. "I mean the design, it suits you. You look, stunning in that dress." The ward seemed to tilt. For a Selathi, such a statement was not casual. It was something spoken only during ceremonial recognition or life-binding declarations. To say it openly, without preparation or witnesses trained to interpret it, was shocking. Nira's vision blurred. Her heart raced, a reaction she had not experienced since her early training days. She felt heat rush through her skin, a dangerous loss of control. Her knees weakened. Nearby staff gasped as she swayed. One nurse rushed forward, steadying her before she fell. Alarms chirped softly as her vitals spiked. Daniel's smile vanished. "Hey, wait, I didn't mean, are you okay?" Security protocols activated instantly. Two station guards moved closer, hands near their weapons. Conversation stopped. Every eye in the ward turned toward the human. Nira was guided to a chair, her breathing shallow. Shame and confusion twisted inside her. She could not speak. Words failed her. "What did you say to her?" one guard demanded. Daniel raised his hand slowly. "I just gave a compliment, I swear. I didn't threaten her or anything." The word compliment caused murmurs among the staff. Some species had no direct translation for it. Others associated it with manipulation or dominance displays. The head physician arrived moments later, tall and severe. "Remove the human from the ward," she ordered. "Now." Daniel was escorted away, his mind racing. He replayed the moment again and again, unable to understand how a simple sentence had caused such chaos. Nira was taken to a private recovery room. Medical scans showed no physical damage, but her stress levels remained dangerously high. She lay still, staring at the ceiling, trying to regain control. Why did it affect her so strongly? The words echoed in her mind. Stunning. It was not a statement of rank or function. It did not measure her worth by efficiency or obedience. It was personal, direct, seen. That was what frightened her most. Outside the ward, whispers spread quickly. Some claimed the human had issued a binding challenge. Others believed it was an attempt at psychological domination. A few suggested it was a deliberate act meant to destabilize Scifi's staff. Daniel sat alone in a security room, hands clasped, waiting to be questioned. He felt sick with guilt. He had meant no harm. On Earth, what he said would barely have been noticed. "This is going to end my assignment," he muttered. Station officials debated behind closed doors. Humans were already considered unpredictable. This incident confirmed many fears, yet medical records told a different story. Despite her reaction, Nira's neural scans showed something unusual. Alongside stress markers were patterns associated with increased self-perception and emotional stimulation rarely seen in Scifi adults. The station's cultural liaison studied the data in silence. "This was not an attack," she said finally. "It was an accident, a dangerous one, yes, but revealing." In her room, Nira sat up slowly, her breathing steadied. The panic faded, replaced by something unfamiliar, warmth. She pressed a hand to her chest, confused by the feeling. It was not shame. It was not fear anymore. It was awareness. For the first time in her long career, someone had spoken to her not as a role, not as a function, but as an individual. And somewhere in the vast, quiet medical station, that simple human mistake had begun something no one yet understood. The station did not return to normal after the incident. Even when the lights dimmed to their usual calm levels and the machines returned to steady rhythms, something invisible had changed. Conversations were quieter, more cautious. Eyes followed humans when they passed, measuring them in a new way. Nira remained in the recovery room longer than medical rules required. Physically, she was fine. Her heart rate had stabilized, her breathing steady, but the doctors insisted on observation. Scifi emotional disturbances were rare, and when they happened, they were taken seriously. She sat on the edge of the bed, hands folded neatly in her lap. Her uniform had been replaced with a plain medical robe, stripped of rank and color. She felt exposed without it, as if a layer of protection had been removed. The words still lingered in her thoughts. She had replayed them so many times that she knew the exact tone, the slight hesitation in the human's voice, the way his eyes had widened when he realized something was wrong. There had been no aggression in him, no intent to shame or claim, just honesty. That made it worse. Or maybe more dangerous. A soft chime announced the arrival of the cultural liaison. Elder Serge entered the room, her movements slow and deliberate. Her skin was darker than Nira's, marked with faint lines that showed her age and wisdom. She had spent most of her life studying other species so Scifi mistakes could be avoided. She sat across from Nira, folding her hands. "You may speak freely here," she said. "This room is shielded." Nira nodded. "I am stable now." "I know," Serge replied. "That is not why I am here." There was a pause. Silence was comfortable among the Scifi, but this silence carried weight. "Tell me," Serge said gently, "what did you feel when the human spoke?" Nira hesitated. She searched for the right words, but Scifi language had few terms for personal emotion. Most feelings were described through duty or consequence. "I felt seen," she said slowly, "not observed, seen." Serge's eyes sharpened with interest. "That is unusual." "Yes," Nira agreed. "It was overwhelming. I did not know how to respond. My training failed." "That is not failure," Serge said. "That is encounter." Nira lowered her gaze. "The station believes the human acted with intent." "They believe many things," Serge replied. "Fear fills gaps where knowledge is missing." Across the station, Daniel Hayes sat through his third interview of the cycle. Station security, medical command, and cultural oversight had all questioned him separately. Each time, he told the same story. "I didn't mean anything by it," he said, voice tired but steady. "On Earth, saying something like that is normal. It's just being polite, being kind." Some officials listened. Others did not. "You must understand," one officer said coldly, "that humans do not define normal here." "I get that now," Daniel replied. "I really do, but I swear I wasn't trying to challenge her or disrespect her culture." A silence followed. Finally, the officer spoke again. "You are confined to non-public areas until further notice." Daniel nodded. "Understood." As he was escorted away, he felt the familiar weight of isolation. Humans were always walking a thin line out here. One wrong step, one misunderstood gesture, and everything could fall apart. He thought of the nurse's face as she nearly collapsed. The shock, the confusion, guilt twisted in his chest. Back in the medical wing, the staff struggled with tension. The incident had spread beyond Ward 7. Other species whispered theories. Some believed humans possessed unknown mental influence. Others thought they were emotionally unstable primitives. A few, quietly, were curious. Junior staff members approached Nira carefully when she returned to limited duty. They did not mention the incident directly, but their glances lingered. "You are cleared for light work," the head physician told her. "No patient leadership for now." Nira accepted the decision without protest. Still, something inside her felt different. When she walked, she stood a little straighter. When she spoke, her voice carried more certainty. She noticed it, and it unsettled her. During a routine check, a younger Scifi nurse hesitated beside her. "Senior Nira," she said softly, "is it true the human spoke to you directly?" "Yes," Nira replied, without rank acknowledgement. "Yes." The younger nurse's eyes widened. "And you survived." Nira almost corrected her, then stopped. "Yes," she said again. Later that cycle, Serge convened a private council meeting. Representatives from several species attended, along with station command. Humans were not invited. "The incident must be addressed," the station director said. "Confidence in safety is shaken." Serge inclined her head. "And yet no harm was done." "An experienced nurse nearly collapsed," another delegate argued. "Because our cultural defenses were not designed for honesty without hierarchy," Serge replied calmly. Murmurs spread through the chamber. "The human used positive personal language," Serge continued. "Something most of us reserve for ritual or manipulation. To them it is everyday communication." "That does not make it safe," someone said. No, Serge agreed, but it makes it powerful. She activated a display showing medical data. Observe Nurse Nira's neural readings after recovery. Stress diminished quickly. Confidence markers increased. Long-term emotional balance improved. Silence fell. You are suggesting, the director said slowly, that the human helped her. I am suggesting, Serge replied, that humanity uses emotional reinforcement as naturally as breathing. And we are unprepared for it. Back in his assigned quarters, Daniel received an unexpected message request. It was marked cultural liaison priority. He straightened, confused. Accept, he said. Serge's image appeared. Guard Hayes, she said. You are not in trouble. Not anymore. Daniel let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. That's good to hear. I wish to ask you something, Serge continued. When you spoke to Nurse Nira, what did you intend to give her? Daniel thought for a moment. Respect, he said, nothing else. Serge studied him. You gave her more than that. The channel closed before he could respond. In the following cycles, small changes appeared across the station. A human doctor thanked a non-human technician for quick thinking. A human engineer encouraged a hesitant alien apprentice. Each time there were reactions: surprise, confusion, sometimes fear, but also something else. Productivity increased in mixed teams. Error rates dropped. Some staff reported feeling more alert, more capable. These reports were quiet, unofficial, but impossible to ignore. Nira observed all of this from within. She watched how humans spoke to each other, how easily they shared approval. She began to understand why the words had struck her so deeply. Salathi worth was measured by perfection. Humans seemed to value effort, intention, presence. One cycle, she found herself standing near the observation window, looking out at the stars. She placed her medical badge back onto her uniform, feeling its weight. For the first time, she did not feel defined by it alone. Far away, reports began to move beyond the station. Cultural analysts flagged humanity as emotionally hazardous but strategically valuable. A phrase appeared in one report, quickly classified: human morale influence. And at the center of it all was a simple truth the galaxy was only beginning to understand. Humans did not just survive together, they lifted each other up. And once that idea entered the wider galaxy, it refused to stay quiet. The warning alarms began as a low vibration through the station's structure, so soft at first that many thought it was only background noise. Lights shifted from calm white to pale amber. Conversations paused. Machines adjusted their rhythms. Then the alarms grew louder. Nira felt it through the floor before she heard the words: emergency power fluctuation. Sector 12, reactor conduit instability. Her training took over immediately. She turned from the patient she was assisting and activated her wrist console. Data streamed across the screen faster than usual, too fast. That section feeds half the medical wing, a junior nurse said, voice tight, including intensive care. Nira's mind worked quickly. If power failed there, life support systems would drop. Backup generators existed, but they required manual confirmation to fully engage. Send all non-critical patients to inner wards, Nira said. Her voice was calm but firm. Now, the junior nurse hesitated. That requires authorization from. I am assuming responsibility, Nira interrupted. Move. The nurse obeyed at once, surprised by the force in Nira's tone. Across the station, similar moments played out. Systems flickered. Gravity shifted slightly, just enough to unsettle balance. Species unfamiliar with such instability reacted with fear. Some froze. Others argued over protocol. Daniel Hayes was already moving when the alarms reached his sector. He snapped his helmet into place and keyed his communicator. Diplomatic guard responding, he said. What's the situation? Possible cascading failure, station security replied. Multiple systems at risk. Daniel broke into a run. He didn't wait for full instructions. Experience told him that in emergencies, seconds mattered more than perfect plans. As he passed through a junction corridor, he saw confusion spreading. A group of alien technicians clustered around a sealed access panel, voices raised. "It will not open without command approval," one insisted. "We do not have time," another argued. Daniel stepped in. "What's behind that panel?" "Manual coolant control," a technician said. "If pressure builds, then we open it," Daniel said. "It violates protocol." "So does exploding," Daniel replied. He forced the panel with a portable tool, muscles straining. The metal gave way. Heat rushed out, but the system inside was intact. "Reset valves 3 through 6, Daniel ordered. "Now." The technician stared at him. "Please," he added. "Trust me." Something in his voice cut through their hesitation. They moved. In the medical wing, Neera coordinated evacuations with speed she had never allowed herself before. She didn't wait for approval from higher authorities. She assessed, decided, acted. Patients were moved. Machines were rerouted. She reassigned staff based on ability, not rank. Each decision felt dangerous. Each one also felt right. "Senior Neera," a doctor said urgently, "we are losing signal from pediatric intensive." Neera's chest tightened. That ward housed fragile patients from several species. Losing power there would be catastrophic. "I will go," she said. "That area is unstable," the doctor protested. "So am I," Neera replied, already moving. She took a maintenance corridor, the lights flickering above her. Her heart pounded, but her thoughts were clear. With every step she felt that strange confidence again, steady and warm. As she reached the ward, the doors were partially sealed. Emergency locks had engaged. She activated her console and tried to override them. The system rejected her. For a moment doubt crept in, then a memory surfaced. A human voice, calm and sincere. "You look stunning in that dress." It wasn't about appearance. She understood that now. It was recognition, belief. Neera placed her hand on the panel and tried again, routing authority through emergency medical channels she technically wasn't supposed to use. The doors slid open. Inside, the ward was dim. Backup power had engaged partially, but several life support pods were offline. Nurses stood frozen, overwhelmed. "Follow my instructions," Neera said loudly. Now they did. She moved from bed to bed, manually stabilizing systems, redirecting power, encouraging staff with clear, direct words. "You are doing well. Stay with me. Keep going." The words felt strange on her tongue, but powerful. Elsewhere, Daniel reached the central power junction. Station security was present but arguing. "The main relay must be shut down to prevent overload," one officer said. "That will kill power to half the station," another replied. Daniel stepped between them. "We isolate, not shut down," he said. "Route excess through auxiliary lines. Humans do this all the time." "This station is not human-built," the officer snapped. "No," Daniel agreed. "But physics is." He accessed the controls and began rerouting power manually. Sparks flew as systems resisted, but the flow stabilized. "Pressure dropping," someone said in disbelief. Daniel exhaled. "Good, keep monitoring." As the crisis continued, something unexpected happened. The station did not descend into chaos. It adapted. Mixed species teams worked together more effectively than ever before. Humans encouraged. Others responded. Fear gave way to action. In Ward 7, Neera finished stabilizing the last patient. She straightened, hands shaking slightly. Around her, staff looked to her with something new in their eyes. Trust. A station-wide announcement sounded. "Emergency contained. All sections report status." Relief washed through the halls. Daniel leaned against a bulkhead, exhausted. His armor was scorched in places. He removed his helmet, wiping sweat from his brow. For the first time since joining the station, no one looked at him with suspicion. Technicians nodded as they passed. One even offered a brief gesture of thanks. In the medical wing, Neera filed her report. She listed every protocol she had broken. She did not apologize. When the head physician arrived, Neera stood ready for reprimand. Instead, the physician said, "You saved 37 lives." Neera inclined her head. "I acted as needed." "Yes," the physician replied. "You did." Later, alone again, Neera allowed herself to sit. Fatigue settled into her bones, but beneath it was something stronger. She realized the truth then. The human had not weakened her. He had unlocked something that had always been there. And across the station, that realization echoed quietly, waiting for what would come next. The station entered a strange calm after the emergency, the kind that followed disaster but did not yet trust peace. Systems stabilized, lights returned to their steady glow, and the artificial gravity smoothed out. Yet everyone felt it. Something had shifted, not in metal or code, but in the people who lived and worked there. Neera stood before the review council 3 cycles later. The chamber was wide and quiet, filled with representatives from multiple species. Some watched her with open curiosity, others with caution. She wore her full uniform again, silver threads restored, posture straight. "Senior Nurse Neera of the Scifi," the station director said, "you exceeded your authority during the crisis." "Yes," Neera replied calmly. "You reassigned staff without approval." "Yes." "You bypassed security locks." "Yes." The director studied her. "Why?" Neera did not hesitate. "Because waiting would have cost lives." A murmur spread through the chamber. Such direct language was uncommon among the Scifi. The cultural liaison, Serge, observed silently. "You understand," the director continued, "that protocol exists to prevent chaos." "Yes," Neera said, "but protocol assumes time. We did not have time." Another representative leaned forward. "Your actions were effective, but they were also influenced." The word hung in the air. "Influenced by what?" Neera asked. "By human emotional interference," the representative said. Neera met their gaze. "If confidence is interference," she said evenly, "then yes, I was influenced." The chamber fell quiet. Serge finally spoke. "What Senior Neera demonstrates is adaptation, not corruption. She acted with clarity, not compulsion." The director exhaled slowly. "The council will deliberate." Outside the chamber, Daniel Hayes waited near a support pillar, hands clasped behind his back. He had been summoned as well, though no one told him why. He watched delegates pass, trying not to meet their eyes. When Neera emerged, she paused when she saw him. For a moment, neither spoke. "You are recovered," Daniel said carefully. "Yes," Neera replied. "Because of many factors," he nodded, unsure what to say next. "I heard what you did during the emergency. They say you saved a lot of people." "So did you," Neera said. Daniel shifted uncomfortably. Praise still felt dangerous here. "I just did my job." Neera studied him. "You did more than that." Before he could respond, Serge joined them. "Both of you are requested for a joint evaluation," she said. Daniel blinked. "Together?" "Yes," Serge replied. "The station believes it is time to understand what happened, not just react to it." They were led to a smaller chamber, less formal. No guards stood inside, only recording devices and a single table. "Speak freely," Serge said. "This is not a trial." Daniel glanced at Neera, then back at Serge. "I never meant to cause harm." "We know," Serge said. "The question is not intent, it is effect." Neera folded her hands. "Your words disrupted me," she said to Daniel, "but they also strengthened me." Daniel frowned. "I don't understand how that can be both." "Neither did we," Serge said. "Until now." She activated a display showing data from the emergency. Mixed teams with human presence resolved crises faster, not because humans gave orders, but because they gave encouragement. Daniel scratched the back of his neck. "That's just normal for us." "Exactly," Serge replied. "For you it is nothing, for others it is revolutionary," Neera spoke again. "In Scifi culture, worth is proven by silence and perfection. There is no space for reassurance, no recovery from doubt." Daniel looked at her. "That sounds hard." "It is," Neera said simply. Serge nodded. Humans accept imperfection, you praise effort, you normalize failure and recovery. This creates resilience. Daniel leaned back, processing. So, saying something nice is like a superpower. In a way, Serge said. The council's decision came later that cycle. Neera was not punished. Instead, she was promoted. The announcement shocked the station. A Selathi promoted for breaking protocol was unheard of. Official reasoning cited exceptional adaptive leadership under crisis conditions. Unofficially, everyone knew the truth. She had changed. With her new authority, Neera requested something unprecedented. Mixed species morale workshops, co-led by human and non-human staff. The proposal nearly died before approval, but emergency data supported it. Daniel was reassigned, not removed. Reassigned as a liaison to these new teams. This is temporary, Station Command insisted. Daniel nodded. Of course. The first workshop was tense. Staff gathered in a neutral hall, standing far apart. Humans looked confused by the formality. Non-humans looked suspicious of the humans. Daniel stood at the front, feeling very out of place. "I'm not here to teach anyone how to be human," he said. "I'm just here to explain how we work together." Silence. Then Neera stepped forward. "When the station nearly failed," she said, "we survived because some of us spoke when silence was expected, because some of us acted when fear said wait." She looked around the room. "Those words did not weaken us. They strengthened us." A junior technician raised a cautious hand. "What if words cause loss of control?" Neera nodded. "Then we learn control does not come from suppression alone." The workshop did not transform the station overnight. There were mistakes. Some species reacted poorly. One delegate stormed out after being publicly praised, but others stayed. They listened. Over time, small changes took root. Supervisors began acknowledging effort. Teams checked in with each other after long shifts. Failure reports included encouragement, not just correction. Daniel watched it happen with quiet amazement. One cycle, he found Neera standing at the observation window again. "You seem different," he said. "So do you," she replied. He smiled faintly. "Guess we both caused trouble." "Productive trouble," Neera corrected. They stood in silence, watching stars drift by. Far beyond the station, the first official report reached the Galactic Council. It was cautious, carefully worded, but one line stood out. Human emotional communication significantly increases resilience in multi-species operations. The report was flagged for further study, and somewhere, deep in the quiet systems of the galaxy, a new question began to form. If humans could change people with words alone, what else could they change? The station no longer felt the same once the changes took hold. The metal halls were identical, the lights still soft and steady, but the way people moved through them had shifted. There was less fear in their steps, less silence pressed down on every interaction. The station breathed differently now. Neera walked through the medical wing at the start of a new cycle, her pace calm and confident. Staff greeted her as she passed. Some bowed formally, others simply nodded. A few even smiled, an action once considered strange and unnecessary. She returned each greeting in her own way. The morale program had expanded beyond its original purpose. What began as short workshops had become part of standard training. New staff, regardless of species, learned not only procedures and rules but also how humans work together. Encouragement, trust, speaking up. At first, the Galactic Council watched from a distance. Humanity was already considered unpredictable. This new development made them even more cautious. Emotional influence was difficult to measure, harder to control. Reports flowed in. Mixed species crews with humans showed higher survival rates during emergencies. Recovery times shortened. Burnout decreased. Even conflict resolution improved. None of it involved weapons. Daniel Hayes now spent most of his time moving between teams, observing rather than commanding. He was still a guard, but his role had shifted into something new. Translator, bridge, example. He learned to slow his speech to explain intentions before words caused shock. At the same time, others learned to listen past their fear. One cycle, a delegation from the Galactic Council arrived unannounced. Their ship docked quietly, but their presence rippled through the station. They requested a full demonstration. Nira and Daniel were summoned together. The council chamber was larger than the stations, filled with observers from powerful species. Some were ancient. Some had never spoken to a human directly. Nira stood tall, silver threads catching the light. Daniel stood beside her, hands relaxed at his sides. "You claim," one counselor said, voice echoing, "that humanity's emotional behavior is beneficial rather than destabilizing." "Yes," Nira replied. "And you," another counselor said to Daniel, "claim you do not control this effect." "That's right," Daniel said. "We don't even think about it most of the time." "That is precisely the problem," a third counselor said. Nira stepped forward. "With respect," she said, "the problem is not that humans speak freely. The problem is that the rest of us were never allowed to." A hush fell over the chamber. She continued. "For generations, many species survived by suppressing emotion. It kept us orderly. It kept us obedient. But it also made us fragile." She gestured to the display behind her. Images appeared, footage from the crisis, teams working together, lives saved. Humans reminded us that strength can also come from belief, from being seen, from knowing your effort matters. The council studied the data in silence. Finally, the eldest counselor spoke. "If this influence spreads unchecked, it could destabilize entire civilizations." Daniel inhaled, ready to respond, but Nira spoke first. "Or," she said calmly, "it could help them survive what rigid systems never could." The council requested a final test, a simulated crisis, multiple species, no warning, limited oversight. Daniel and Nira exchanged a glance. "Understood," Daniel said. The simulation began abruptly. Systems failed, communications dropped, conflicting orders flooded the environment. Old habits surfaced immediately. Some teams froze, others waited for authority. Daniel did not give commands. Instead, he spoke clearly and steadily. "You've got this. Trust your training. Make the call, I'm with you." Nira did the same, her voice strong and focused. "I see you. You are capable. Act now." Something remarkable happened. Teams moved, not perfectly, not without mistakes, but they moved together. They adapted. They recovered when plans failed. The simulation ended early. Success conditions met. The council chamber remained silent long after the results displayed. At last, the eldest counselor rose. "Humanity," they said slowly, "has introduced a force we did not anticipate." Daniel stiffened. "Not conquest," the counselor continued. "Not dominance, morale." A ripple of quiet agreement moved through the chamber. "The council will not restrict human emotional communication," the counselor declared. "Instead, we will study it, learn from it." Nira felt a deep, steady warmth in her chest. After the session, Daniel stood alone in the docking bay, watching ships depart. He felt lighter than he had since leaving Earth. Nira joined him. "It seems," she said, "you have changed the galaxy." Daniel shook his head. "We didn't change anything, we just acted like ourselves." She considered that. "Sometimes," she said, "that is enough." They stood in companionable silence. Across the galaxy, training manuals were rewritten, not loudly, not proudly, but carefully. A new section appeared in many of them, translated into dozens of languages. Human-style morale communication. It contained no weapons diagrams, no battle tactics, only words, encouragement, recognition, belief. And wherever humans traveled after that, they carried their greatest strength with them. Not steel, not fire, but the simple, dangerous idea that everyone mattered. And once the galaxy heard that idea, it could never forget it.